You're one of the most passionate people I think I've ever met. How do you handle the fact that a lot of the players that you see and work with probably aren't as passionate about tennis as you are?
I just think that, when I'm working with players, first of all, I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. And I think to be on a tennis court, hitting balls and staying fit and healthy and learning, and I think players have got to play with gratitude. I think, we've got to teach players that there are a lot of things they could be doing. And if you can encourage them to get out and have as much fun as you have. And I think coaches have a responsibility to show what a good life it is, because not everyone's going to be a great tennis player, but they are going to get the opportunity to be fit, to be healthy, to travel, to be competitive. And so there's so many things that are good about this game.
So do you think then that the coaching sort of suppresses that enjoyment in a lot of cases then?
It can do. It can do. I've always come from the philosophy that a happy, enthusiastic tennis player is a dangerous opponent. I've always come from that angle, and it's my responsibility to show the players some energy and how much you can get out of this.
Okay. Now, you attended a course that I did here at the Wirral fairly recently, and I remember you saying at that point, you sort of said that it was nice to hear somebody talking about tennis again. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, to me, I think we, tennis can become a very technical sport. I fully understand that, and yet we mustn't lose track of the fact that it is a game. And I think what I liked particularly about that course and the delivery was that it reinvented the fact to me that tennis is a game, and you can get really embedded and embroiled in over-analysing stuff. And to me, the best coaches are the ones that keep it simple, and the best players are the ones who keep it simple. The tactics are simple, their technique is simple, it's effective and efficient, and I think that's really all I'm looking for. And I don't want to go. I don't want a War and Peace article on how to hit the tennis ball. It can be simpler than that.
So Nick, I mean, you've travelled a lot. You've spent a lot of time with some of the best players on the tour and some of the best coaches and what have you. You must have picked up an awful lot. Just give us a bit of a flavour of what you learned in your time as a coach when you were travelling with players.
Yeah, I was really lucky in my career to be in an environment where I saw 6 potential world number ones, which was great. And there were certain traits in them that ran throughout. They're very much walkers rather than talkers. They do stuff that they believe in themselves completely. There's a lot of trust in their technique. The coaches themselves make life simple for their players. They really make things easy for them. They're not complicated, and they're competitive. They're incredibly competitive. I can remember Nadal being a very humble little man off the court, but once he got on the court, he was an absolute tiger, as everybody knows.
It's very interesting, and I suppose we do a lot of soul searching in this country about our perceived lack of players, and I guess in what you've just said are some of the answers to some of those questions we keep asking ourselves.
Yeah, and to me the best coaches, I've been lucky to come across some really good coaches, but they put things in a way that the players can use on the tennis court, and that's really important. They're able to put across things that the players need that can help them become difficult opponents. And some of the players that I've seen, I used to say to my players, go and make yourself a bad draw. When people are looking at the draw sheet on the clubhouse, make sure that they're looking at your name and saying, I don't want to play that guy because of this, that and the other. So make yourself a bad draw.
And just changing tack slightly, you've done a lot of work in the years on court with coaches in this country, and you've obviously worked a lot with the LTA and what have you. You fairly recently made your debut on a level 1 for Inspire to Coach.
Yeah.
Just tell us about that, and more importantly, what advice would you give to young and up-and-coming and aspiring coaches for the future?
Well, the one thing I loved about that Inspire to Coach course was that it was actually talking very much about tennis as a game again, and I really liked that. I think sometimes we can get too embroiled in the technique. Technique, of course, technique is very important, and I'm not saying it's not. But what I liked about that course was there was a real emphasis on tactics and what players would like to do. and then the technique supports the tactics. And I like it that way round. There'll always be a debate about what comes first, technique or tactics. But for me, playing the game, that's why children come to play. They come to play the game of tennis, and it's our responsibility, in my opinion, to teach them to play the game and then show them the techniques that enable them to be good.
And just thinking about what your observations so far on the level 1 courses that you've done, what advice would you give, say, to a 16 or a 17-year-old who's coming onto a level 1 or a level 2 course, thinking about a career in tennis as a coach? What advice would you give to them in terms of learning the ropes as a tennis coach?
Yeah, they've got to be curious. I think when they start off, the idea, and people might say the idea of being a tennis coach it seems like a nice thing to do, but it is involved. There is a process for them to follow, and I think people coming onto the level 1 should really do some work prior to that. Because if they do that, if they read the documentation that goes out, they will be prepared for the course and will get a lot more from it. And I always look at young coaches coming in for the very first time, and I'm envious of them because it is such a wonderful career and a great opportunity. But be willing to take part, be willing to be curious, be willing to self-reflect, and make yourself as good as you can be.
That's brilliant. That's great advice. And probably the hardest question of the morning. Why the hell do you support Tranmere?
I can't. Look at me. I'm completely tongue-tied. I love the underdog, Mark.
Nick, thanks very much for your time. Thank you.
No problems, yeah.